All right. Hello, hello. Welcome everyone who's hopping in to our virtual RYG, RYG for red, yellow, green for customer health. As we wait for attendees to join, please feel free to put your name, your title, your company, where you're calling in from in the live chat. I'm going to go ahead and repeat this message a couple of times over the next about 90 seconds, and then I'll kick it off with intros and get the team started. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Please feel free to post your name, title, company, where you're calling in from in chat. And I will be watching chat the entire time. So as you guys have questions for our fantastic panelists, let me know, point those in there, and then we'll call them out as we go. Awesome. So thank you everybody for joining. We'll give it another 30, maybe 60 seconds before we kick it off, but please post your name, title, where you're calling in from in the chat. It's nice to see we have a couple people in Texas. I'm actually calling in from Houston today, even though ChurnZero is from the DC area. Indianapolis, we got Toronto, awesome. South Carolina, Missouri, so great. I will be kind of pointing out chat throughout this call today. So as you guys have questions, feel free to post them in there. We also have a Q&A widget. So I'll be keeping track of that. We have some fantastic panelists that are on board today. And as people are writing in chat, I'm giving it a couple more seconds, and then I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll jump into our topics for today. Okay, so welcome everyone to today's virtual RYG. As we wait for attendees to join, please place your name, title, company, where you're calling in from in our chat. And our goal today is to talk about customer success and customer expansion. So very, very popular topics that I'm absolutely thrilled to talk about today. Our goal here is to create an informal atmosphere as well for CS leaders to network with industry peers. So please participate in Q&A and chat. I'll be watching those the whole time. And then let's go ahead and kick it off. So let me advance the slide here. Very, very warm welcome to our discussion leaders, Jennifer McIntosh, who I will be calling Jen Mac, Vice President of Customer Experience at MindBridge AI, and Jennifer Griffin, who I will be calling Jen Griffin, Vice President of Customer Success at TrustRadius. So I'll have the two of you introduce yourselves, and Jen Mac, go ahead and kick us off.
Thanks, Bree. Hi, everybody. Yeah, so Jen Mac here. I'm based in Ottawa, so I'm calling in from Canada today as well. So peeps, to my Canadian peeps, hey. I am the Vice President of Customer Experience and Success here at MindBridge. And MindBridge is the world's leading risk discovery platform for auditors and accountants. So we work a lot with the financial data and financial risk. So that's what we do. And I lead the entire post-sales side of the house here at MindBridge.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jen. And Jen Griffin.
Sure, thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here. You've got two Jens and a Bree. That seems like a pretty fantastic panel. So I run our customer success team at TrustRadius. We are based in Austin, Texas, and that's where I've been my whole life. And TrustRadius is a ratings and reviews platform company. And the way we have our CS team structured, we've got our CSMs who handle all the day-to-day, and then we have our account managers and account execs who will do anything contractual related. And so excited about the discussion today and how we kind of bridge that the in-between area there.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Bree Adams. I'm one of our CS team leads at ChurnZero. So I have a CSM role here where I manage a book of business, and I also manage a team of our enterprise CSMs. So I work with Jen Griffin at TrustRadius, and my team actually works with Jen McIntosh. So very, very excited to have you both, especially after reviewing some of our notes from our pre-session. There are a lot of questions that I have for you. So I'm going to go ahead and let's actually just dive right in here.
Sure.
So we have three fantastic topics for the day. Our first one is the pros and cons of CS ownership and expansion. Second is making your CS team comfortable with encouraging upsells and cross-sells. And the third, strategies to working with sales to drive that expansion. So for our first topic, I'd actually love to have Jen Griffin and Jen Mac talk to me about your thoughts on this topic, and then we'll just kick it back and forth. So Jen Griffin, I'm going to start with you here.
Sure. So I think, to start off, I don't think there's a right way to do it, right? And I think depending on the company, lots of folks do it a little bit differently on how do you kind of own that customer expansion piece. And I've even seen it change in a company, right? You start off one way and then it evolves into another way and then another way. And so I think it's this kind of continual evolution. My personal bent is that, I think CSMs are in a really prime position to learn about upsells and expansions. They're working with customers day in, day out, and they have their ear to the ground on it. And for us, it's from there we kind of pick it up and we pull in that AM. When I first started at Trust Radius, we did not have the AM function, and all of that fell to the CSMs, and it was with mixed success. And what we found was a lot of the logistics of the paperwork and the red lines, it was not great for CSMs to be doing it. So that's kind of why we've kind of kept that division there. And so what we do instead is we work really, really closely. We have joint account reviews, et cetera, with the account manager, so that we're kind of, hey, I think this might be a good one. Let me pull you into the next call and kind of work that relationship that way. So that's kind of how we've been doing it. But I think there's obviously lots of pros and cons to it. For us, I think the pro of having the CSM kind of own that relationship, and then the sales side to kind of own some of that official expansion piece has worked well.
Yeah, and I have a lot of questions for you on that, but they apply to Jen Mack as well. So Jen Mack, tell us your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, thanks, Bree. It's quite similar to Jennifer Griffin, actually. I also believe that the customer success manager role should be different from the account manager role for all the same reasons that she said, especially around redlining, paperwork. The customer success manager, in my mind, really is a trusted advisor, right? And really, in my case, and all the customer success roles I've had, it's about I think another piece that she talked about the maturity and the size of the company, but I also think the complexity of the product plays a big role in the decision here. For me, in the last couple of roles that I've led, customer success, it's been very technical products. So here at Mindbridge, my CSMs are mostly accountants. So they are already CPAs, and so they have deep domain knowledge in the area, and are very, very strong advisors to our customers. Probably not so familiar with having commercial experience, right? So we do like Jen does, and blend that closely with our account management function here. So I have them log what we call customer success qualified leads, or CSQLs. You may have heard of that term other places, but we have them bring those leads in and transfer those, actually using ChurnZero, right? We do an automated play in ChurnZero and bring that over to our CRMs and turn that into an opportunity if it's something real. If it's a small, simple thing, in my past, we haven't done it here yet, but in my past, so for example, if somebody wants additional training or needs another seat or two, something like this that is very, very minimal work, then I think that the CSMs are often capable of doing that. Or in some cases, if it's a large enough organization, you may also have a renewal manager function that could take that on too. That's what I have here. So here I have a renewal manager on my side. So I do manage the renewals, and so my renewal manager takes care of those smaller deals. And if it's a really big one, then we pass it back and work closely with our peers in the account management and account executive team.
Okay, so that's super interesting to me, because we do it a really different way at ChurnZero, but in my career, I've seen it done in all of those ways. And honestly, I've seen it done really successfully from all of these different spectrums. But before I start peppering you with questions, anybody who's on the line, I am watching QA, I'm watching chat and polls. So if you do have any questions, please post them in chat and QA. I'm more than happy to shout those out as we're going. But one question that I do have for both of you. So at ChurnZero, our CSMs really own 100% of the relationship once the contract is signed. And one of the reasons that we do that is because our CSMs, we're really the product experts. Our implementation and our support, they're kind of hand in hand with that as well, where if I was not a product expert, I feel like I wouldn't be able to actually show you the value and of ChurnZero and actually, make that a really, really clear thing. So anytime that we do have those expansion conversations, it's always driven by the CSM. And we even have our sales team who will occasionally pull in a CSM for, that pre-sales conversation with a prospect. So other organizations, I've seen this done different ways, but I'm curious at both of your locations, when you are working with that account manager who is not the CSM, or you're working with that salesperson who's, not that CSM, are those people who are making those sales, are they always reporting up to the sales organization, or do you guys have, joint meetings or joint managers, or how does that work within your structure? And Jen Mack, I'm going to go for you this time.
Sure. So so they are separate functions, and so I also, and my entire team actually reports into the COO, who is responsible for the entire growth function of the business, of course, which we are part of. In that, though, there is an SVP of sales who manages all of the sales pipeline, and including some of these large upsells. Like I said, on my team I have a renewal manager, so I focus on some of the renewals with our existing accounts. If they're on the smaller size, if we're doing a massive sort of expansion in that account, a cross-sell into another division. So many of the customers that we're dealing with are very big companies, and so we often have to go back because the sales cycle can be very long and complex. So, in that case, we would go back. And certainly we do have lots of joint meetings, right, where we talk about the pipeline, we talk about, what's happening in each side of the account. The CSMs and the AEs themselves work very, very closely together. It's really a team sport, right? So we have to all work really, really closely together. But yes, we are definitely separated in terms of organizational structure. Okay,
great. Jen Griffin.
Yeah, similar. We are separate technically, by the org boxes. Our account managers roll up under sales, but we do have, they sit in my CS team meetings, right? And so they are definitely kind of our dotted line folks in there. And we have, every week we've got kind of account reviews where it is AM1 and CSM1 and me, and we're all talking about our accounts, and then AM2 and CSM, right? And so we do all these matchups in the vain attempt to keep up with what's going on from both lenses. So it can be hard. I think sometimes, like anything in an orgs, right? Some things things get lost somewhere in the confusion because we're on multiple teams. But by and large, it is, to Jen's point, it's a team sport, and we're all at the same goal, so that part helps.
Yeah, and I love that. I think just visibility across the organization is such an incredibly important part of a successful CS group. So I love that you guys are having those joint meetings, and we're getting some really great questions through chat. And one of them is actually, where does your customer success organization sit within your company structure? So I'm going to pass it over to you, Jen Griffin, and tell us where you sit.
Yeah, so for us, all of our CSMs sit with me. So I lead our CS team, and then I report directly into the CEO. So we are a bit of a smaller group, and so we've got, sales reports to the CEO, so do I, so does finance. So that's kind of it's a very basic structure for us.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Basically the exact same. Yeah.
Yep, and that makes perfect sense. I think because we are a smaller company, and I think we have about 85 employees now, which is awesome. When I started 2.5 years ago, we were at 24. So we've seen a lot of growth, which is always really exciting. But my manager, who is our chief customer officer, Abby Hammer, she's our CCO. She's also our head of product, and we are small enough that we're able to continuously do that, because then, anytime my customer has a question or a feedback request or an idea, I get to personally take that to my CCO, who knows our product like the back of her hand. So it's an exciting area to be kind of in this organization where CS and product are really working so hand in hand. But, it'll be interesting to see when we get to 200 people, where does CS sit, in a couple of years. But okay, so I'm going to check chat real quick. But one of the other things that I would love to get your take on, let me see here. At what point do you feel that you actually bring in that salesperson for that upsell? So Jen Mack, I know you said, if it's a simple user, if it's, maybe a really, really simple product, the CSM can take that. But at what point do your CSMs know that, hey, it's now a little bit over my head, or it's a little bit outside of my wheelhouse, and I want to bring in sales or account management?
Yeah, I think it's judgment, right? I mean, this whole job is 100% judgment, and you have to, trust that we're giving them the right skills to make the best choices that they have, or that they can at the right time. So for us, if it's really going outside of the normal sort of review process. So for example, if it's a renewal, they're often both involved in those conversations, right? So the CSM is really preparing kind of, quarterly executive business reviews, and we're doing that in conjunction with preparing for the renewal. So they're both kind of involved. But if it's outside of that, normally there's an expansion opportunity going into another division, for example, they would know that they would quickly call out. Here, most of the time, my CSMs are reaching out to their AE for any sort of commercial activity. In the past, it's been a bit different, but here at MindBridge, that's what we're doing. So most of the time, they're actually reaching out to their counterpart.
Great. And Jen Griffin.
Yeah, it's similar. We do, it's when in doubt, bring them in. If it even smells like there might be something in there, even if it doesn't end up in an expansion or an upsell, then it gives our account managers another reason to kind of make that touch point. So if a CSM even gets to think, and it could be something casual of, why don't you come to my next standing call? Let's just touch base on this, and then make it super easy that way.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. We're getting a lot of questions and comments in about compensation for CSM. So I'm curious, what does CSM compensation look like? Do you have quotas for upsells when they bring in the account manager? Do they have, just a straight salary? What's it look like? And Jen Griffin, let's start with you.
Yeah, so it's interesting because it's something I'm hoping that we can shift a bit in the future. But right now, they get a straight salary, and then all of our bonuses are really around that gross retention metric. And right now, we don't do anything for any of the expansion pieces for it. It's all on the AM side. But we have been talking about doing what Jen had talked about with making those actual CS leads. And we're thinking about going down the path of making those as more of a spiff, right? Every time you put one in, if it ends up converting, you get X dollars and call it that way. And then that way they've got a little bit of skin in the game to throw them into the pot and follow a process, which we all like. So that's kind of how we're leaning towards going to it. But we don't have any kind of quota that you have to grow your portfolio by X dollars or anything like that. For us, it's all about the retention.
Okay, Jen Mack.
Yeah, great question. And this is brand new for us. So we've just actually made some significant changes in this area. So this year the team will have a core base salary, and then they will have an incentive program that is really based on expansion. So we are not looking at it as an individual. This is as a team. So as a team, we have a book of business that we're maintaining. So similar to Jennifer Griffin, it's about the gross retention rate. So how are we what's the growth that we're putting on that? And so we have a percentage that we're looking to grow, and then everybody gets a hard number. It's not a percentage. So we've allocated and accrued for this in the budget. It's a hard number, and it's a significant number. So they're very motivated to make sure that they achieve those goals, because it's not just a small amount. It's a big number for them. So they're very excited.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's exciting to see those changes too, because I think, it's a daunting conversation to say, how should we change our CSM compensation, and will they be happy with it? And am I going to, get some offshoot area that just, it doesn't make sense. So really interesting to hear those challenges. At ChurnZero, we have a salary, but we also have a bonus component, and the bonus component is entirely related to revenue retention. So that is keeping our customers, that is expanding those customers. So if we, get above 120% of our revenue retention for a quarter, we have an even higher bonus potential and things like that. But just like Jen Griffin, and Jen Mack, revenue retention, keeping those customers, keeping them happy, and for as long as possible, that's always absolutely the goal. So we have a couple really fantastic questions in the chat that are actually a perfect segue to the next question. So I'm just going to go ahead and advance here, and let's talk about making your CS teams comfortable with encouraging upsells and cross-sells. So there are a lot of questions that I want to actually ask you guys that are in your notes. So Jen Griffin, will you go ahead and give me your take on this topic?
Yeah, I think the biggest one for us is making sure that what we're trying to upsell or kind of push on them is it aligns with the customer goals, right? And so I try to make sure that we're always steering away from what you want to avoid is this new feature that costs money came out. Quick, everybody go and have a meeting and push it really hard. Jam this new feature down their throat. And it's much more of as a CSM using those skills to say, wow, this thing came out. I know these 3 customers of mine are a perfect fit. I can't wait to get it in front of them and to talk about it and to get them excited. And so that's kind of what we try to highlight is making sure that we've got, we're always kind of tying it back to the goals of those customers. And so it doesn't feel so much like a sell. So that's kind of the take that we've taken on it, which I think makes CSMs a little bit more comfortable. I'm just trying to help you. This is my job. Not here I come and I'm asking for you to write a bigger check.
Yeah, I love that. And what about you, Jen Mack?
Well, I'm just having a chuckle here because, as she said, we've got a new feature and we're coming for you. So as a customer success executive myself, we procure a lot of software. And so recently I had a very similar conversation where that's exactly what happened to me, is that all of a sudden I got on a call and there was an account executive on the call, and they were really pushing their new feature. So I thought that was really funny. That's not what we do here. Similar. So I have a mantra that I have shamelessly stolen from the famous Bill Cushard, and so he runs a podcast called Helping Sales Radio, and he has a saying that I have adopted for many years now, that selling doesn't help, helping sells. And I find that really helps. No pun intended. The CSMs are really diffuse. I'm like, listen, if you are helping the customers to be successful with what they have purchased, and like Jennifer Griffin said, moving towards their outcomes and their goals that they have, then there's no selling that's needed, right? As long as they will continue to buy from you, and they will continue to buy more. So, that's the best thing that we can do. And I mean, a couple of other things that I think have helped is giving them some light sales training. And I say that with tongue in cheek here. We don't want to put them through heavy 4 days of Sandler training or anything like this, but helping them understand that it's okay to have these commercial conversations so that they aren't completely caught off guard. And as soon as somebody says, oh my God, let's talk dollars, they get, oh my God, I'm not allowed to say anything about that. I don't want them to feel like that. I want them to be comfortable enough to have an early conversation and say, hey, we can talk a little bit about this, but let me bring in, someone who is more comfortable with doing that. One of the things that I found is, as we're just starting to do this, is practice objection handling, right? So if there's, and this was actually spun up from one of a recent blog posts that you guys did, Bree. It really sparked a lot of interest here in the team, and we've been having some really great conversations about it, which has led to us saying, hey, let's do some role playing with some objection handling. So, again, we're not trying to do heavy sales here, but again, just helping them get more comfortable with, answering some of those questions that are going to come up.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the more that I hear you guys talk, the more questions I have. I think this is such a great conversation, but I'm actually curious, we have a poll that I'm going to have my team publish right now, and it is who owns this upsell and expansion process at your organization. So would love to see the trends here, because it definitely sounds like, a lot of organizations have a sales group that owns this. Ours, the CS team owns it, although who knows if that's going to stay the way in the future. And a couple of great questions in chat that are kind of around this topic as well of who owns it. And Jen Mack, especially because you have recently made changes to the way that your compensation especially runs with your CS team and kind of who owns that. Has there been, any thoughts from the team on, I love this new change, or, oh shoot, I was doing so well on the sales part that now I'm not getting credit? What kind of challenges have you seen there that we can learn from?
Yeah, so I think that clarity is really, really important on here. And so we didn't have an incentive program in the past. So I think that introducing this incentive program this year and this bonus program is really, everybody's pretty happy with it. It's not a give me. It doesn't mean just because, there are some, it's not unattainable. It's a very smart goal where we have to, meet our revenue retention and expansion goals. We work closely. So we're looking at the overall expansion regardless of who's actually closing the business. So it's not about who's actually closing it. It's actually more about what is that expansion, knowing that in many cases, both teams are playing a key role in that expansion opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, clarity, if my team doesn't know why we've just made a change, then I failed as a leader. So I really like that. Jen Griffin, any thoughts on, how your team has responded to sharing the role with sales?
Yeah, I think when it works well, right? And I think I think they are relieved not to have to do the minutia that goes with it, and they do get to do the part they love, which is finding that spark, right? They get super excited when they're like, "I just got off this call. Oh my gosh, they're so excited about this. Let's pull the AM in," right? And they feel that sense of pride. But I think they're more than glad to say, and you go do your thing and I will go do mine, and not have to talk to legal and all that good stuff for it. So far it's been working out well for us.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. And looking at our poll results, we're almost 50-50 in whether CS or sales actually owns that part of the relationship with expansion. So that's interesting. We had our big rig, our big event with the virtual rigs this past October, and we had an Oxford style debate on this question. So who should own the relationship? And we had two people who said CS should own it, two that said sales should own it. And it's a lot of these same ideas where we want to make sure that we have the cleanest relationship with our customer as possible, where they can see that CSM and not think that all they want from me is money. So I definitely understand the both sides there. And one thing as well, because your teams are both growing, our team is growing, and I'm sure you guys have been hiring quite a bit. Are there specific traits that you look for in CS team members, whether they're sales traits or not, that you think have made your candidates particularly successful? And Jen Mack, I'm going to hit you first.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, domain expertise, no matter where I've been. I mean, having some sort of credibility in the space. Again, most of my experience has been, well, all of it perhaps, has been in enterprise level software companies, right? So, they have to have domain expertise. So in my last company, it was really focused around knowledge management and having a very strong knowledge management background. Those are the things that I looked for here. As I mentioned, right, this is about financial literacy, about financial understanding. So having a finance background, whether or not you're an accountant, a certified accountant or not, isn't as important, but certainly having a financial background and having worked somewhere in finance or at least studied it is very important.
Absolutely. Jen Griffin.
So I think we look for similar. We look for that domain expertise. We like to look for people who have worked in marketing fields in their past. But more so for me, it's looking for someone who gets really curious about a customer, who wants to do that discovery, right? Kind of like dig a little bit deeper, and someone who gets excited about making them delighted, right? Like that should be your reward, as I got them to do this. So those are the ones and those are really hard to interview for. So don't ask me that one, is how do we get it? Because sometimes I feel like it's like lightning in a bottle. But when it works well, right, those are the types of folks who like to go in. And then for us, it's this magic combination of having someone who can dig. And then for us, we have to push our customers to actually do the thing that we do. And we often say, it's like our customers buy a gym membership. And if the CSM doesn't push, then they don't go to the gym, right? And so we have to be like that personal coach and getting in there and driving them to take that action. And it takes a lot of work, we all know, to drive those customers. So finding someone who's got that kind of ability to push in a gentle but firm way is also something we look for.
I love that gym membership concept. I just wrote that one down. That's really interesting. I'm curious too. We've been hiring a lot lately, and one of the things that we kind of pride ourselves on is that we're not looking for anyone with a perfect background, because we are customer success for customer success managers. So, our customers are never going to be in that same industry. But one of the things that we have found make very successful candidates even more successful is just knowledge of a renewals process. So whether they owned that dollar conversation or not, or even if they're just excited to talk about dollars, and especially the ROI thing, that has been a really, really huge indicator for us, for people who are really successful. Because if you're afraid to have those conversations about value, it is very, very hard to have them, without a huge attitude shift. But specifically with the renewals, I know you said that, a lot of times you'll either bring in the account manager, or, you'll tag team that process and both be working on that really heavily together. But we got a great question in about that trusted relationship. So how do you build that really trusted, wonderful relationship with your customers? And do you have any specific tactics that folks on the call can take away to start implementing? And Jennifer Griffin, I'm going to hit you this time.
I think there's always some part of just, good rapport building, right? And trying to find that thing. And it's been interesting with COVID, right? We've got some customers that, you're like, is that Michael Jordan I see in the background? Well, tell me about that. Are you into basketball? Right. And so you can get a little bit of that interest in that way. So I do think there is part of it is just good rapport building. But the other part is making sure that they, and again, I'm not, every time I get on the phone, I'm not trying to sell you something, right? When I get on the phone and I'm offering you advice, it's because I want to help you, right? And so making sure we're kind of coming from that spot where they feel that, right? And the goal is when you leave a call, you feel like, yep, we made progress. I know my CSM is working for me. And you kind of can go forth and conquer. So those are the types of things that we try to do, is make sure that we should be seen as a resource, right? And they should be glad when we're calling and not, oh my gosh, we're going to do another QBR. So that's the goal.
Yeah, I love that. And, to what you just said and to something that Jen Mack said earlier about, I'm helping you, I'm not selling something to you. Like I had a sales job, or I had a CS job that had a very big component in sales a couple of years ago. And I was talking to my mom about how it was such a struggle because I'm a terrible salesperson. I would give everything away for free, which is why they don't let me do sales. But the thing that my mother told me was, don't look at it like you're selling them something if you think it's truly going to help. If you actually think that your product is going to deliver them more value, focus on that, ignore absolutely everything else. And I think to Jen Mack's point earlier about, that wonderful mantra, I think that is just, ringing a lot of bells for me. But Jen Mack, what else do you want to add to this?
Yeah, I think the couple of things. One, my CSMs will tell you, I hate the word cadence calls, right? You hear people saying, oh, I have a cadence call. And I'm like, do not have a cadence call with a customer. If you can't bring value, do not waste my time, right? Everybody is busy, and certainly our customers are very, very busy in what they do. I don't think that matters what industry you're in. People are busy. So if you don't have something to bring to them that is of value, that is going to move that needle for them, then don't have the call. Right? Don't just have it because, oh my God, it's every 2 weeks or once a month or whatever it makes, it's on my calendar, I have to have this. If you're not prepared to bring something of value that is going to help them advance whatever they are, if you have customer success plans, we're big on making customer success plans for our customers and working, that's joint accountability. If there's not a check-in of something that's moving that needle forward in that success plan, then don't have it. It doesn't bring any value. So for me, it's really about bringing value.
Yeah, I love that. That's something that we have started with our team. Instead of having just, you are going to have a weekly call or a biweekly or monthly call with your, CSM at ChurnZero, we're like, look, if we don't have an immediate agenda for value, we're canceling the call. There's no sense of us just saying, hey, like we can talk about these 3, waffly things. Like, no, if we're not going to immediately provide value in 15 minutes, we don't need to waste our customers' time. So love that. Okay, so we have about 14 minutes left, and that's just enough time to hit our last topic and then get to some more QA questions. Keep posting them. You guys are sending some fabulous, fabulous questions in. So third topic here, strategies to working with sales to drive expansion. And we also had a chat that I have strategically held on to. So we have a great question follow-up for this. But Jen McIntosh, what's your strategies here?
Ooh, teamwork. We talked about this being a team sport, right? It's definitely a team sport, but it's also important to have clear lines of accountability, right? Who's responsible for what pieces, right? There's a lot to manage here. There's a lot going on, especially as we talk about a renewal, for example. Is this going to be a flat renewal? Is there going to be a small expansion, or is this an opportunity to really go big? Many of our customers have started off with us in a small sort of, I wouldn't call it pilot, but certainly, having a smaller bite, and then the next year it's a little bit bigger bite, and then, at some point it's a giant bite. So, what does that look like? And making sure everybody is clear on who has what, making sure that the AEs know when they're needed in the calls. Similarly to the way I said, don't waste the customer's time, don't waste each other's time. If the CSM isn't needed on a commercial call and you're really just going through red lines, I don't think that's a great use of the CSM's time. Just be respectful of each other's time, the AEs, the CSMs, and the customer, and making sure everybody knows, who's responsible for what, so that things can go as smoothly as possible. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I love that. Jennifer Griffin.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think one of the things that that we're trying to work more and more on, because I think it's a never-ending goal, is to make sure that we're attacking the account as a team, not as two separate. The right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, and making sure that we're getting alignment on these joint calls. We've certainly had frustrations where a CSM and an AM get on a call, and the CSM's got, this is the agenda that I want to get done. And the account manager's like, ooh, goody, give me that upsell. And the CSM is like, what is happening? This was not an upsell call. And so make sure that you're going in with this is the point. We either are talking about it, we're not talking about it. Where are we with that? So that is really key, because a lot of times you assume the other person knows what the point of the call is, and we have not made that clear. And then likewise, it's having one source of truth of what's going on with the account and where is the information. And we struggle with this today because we have it in ChurnZero, we have it in Salesforce, we have it in Asana plans, we have it in Slack, and it's all over the place. And so we're trying to kind of really hone down on what's going on with this account? Can we agree? Because we'll come to the table and you've got a CSM who's like, this is a churn risk. And the account manager's like, no way, I'm upselling. And you're like, where are we? So so getting to that one source of truth and making sure that we're all operating off that same sheet of music is definitely key.
Yeah, and I'm curious as well, with this relationship with sales and CS, do you guys have like an official rules of engagement sort of thing where, and I'm kind of going back to an earlier question with Jen Mack, where you said, our CSMs can handle really small upsells, but like they know when to pull in the sales team. Do you guys have anything official like that says if this occasion happens, we have to send it to sales because they're getting the commission and maybe we're not, so we have to give it over, or how does that look like from a fairly official capacity on your teams? And Jen Mack, I'm going to hit you.
Yeah, good question. I think, yes, I wouldn't say official rules, but we do have some guidelines in place. So for example, one of the things that we do is that if it's a smaller account, right? So if it's like like $40,000 and under, then my team will handle that. So whether or not it's the CSM or the account manager on my team or the renewal manager, somebody on my team will likely manage that renewal process and the small upsell that goes with it, if there's an upsell. If it's a larger account, we typically ship it back. Now that's a moving target at the moment. So today it's $40,000. Tomorrow I suspect that will be a very different number. So, but that's the guideposts that we're using, or the guideposts we're using at the moment.
Okay, great. And we got a couple other questions as well. And I want to tack it on to the end of this one, but how big is your CS org and how big is your sales org?
They're about the same size, and they are about 8 each.
Okay, awesome. Great. So Jennifer Griffin, size of your sales and CS org, and then also, do you guys have that official rules of engagement?
Yeah, I'm trying to count in my head. I think I've got about 8 CSMs, and then we've got 4 on our CS ops side of the house. And then sales we just hired a bunch of new ones. They're probably in that 8 to 10 range right now. So yeah, pretty similar sized. And we don't have like super official rules on it. We do have rules on when do you engage an account manager, which is for most of our accounts, or an account executive, which is for our more top enterprise accounts. And then other than that, it's if you need them, go get them and bring them in, and they're always happy to kind of go and jump in on something. So we don't have official rules for you must do it at this time,
sure.
But that's general guidance.
Okay, so to that point as well, and we got a couple of questions on this specifically. If your CS team and your sales team are sharing that upsell, do they share a commission, or does that go into any of the KPIs that you track between CS and sales? And Jennifer,
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, for us today, it's they do not. So it's everything commission based is just on sales, and so CSMs, my CSMs today get a thank you and a shout out at the company meeting. That's the one thing that we're looking to change, right? And I think we will go towards the initially starting off, instead of a percentage or a commission base, it will be some type of spiff for everything that gets over the line. So that's kind of how we're going to tiptoe into sharing some of that upsell glory.
Okay, awesome. Jen Mack.
Yeah, no. So my CSMs are not commission based at all. They have this bonus program that I just talked about that's there, and the sales team work on on the commission side.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. And at ChurnZero, because we do this kind of on the flip side, where the sales team actually pulls in the CS folks to help them sell every once in a while. One of the things that we do is we just kind of have like a set number of hours per week that our sales team can basically loan from us. So when they do need help, or when a sales engineer is out of the office and they need a CSM or implementation specialist as backup, they can kind of take that time from us, and we're kind of sharing that. But as far as, upsell and expansion goes, if one of my customers reaches out to a salesperson, and let's say it's really new to the relationship in the CSM, and maybe they just became a customer and they're like, hey, we need to add on 10 licenses, sales org, they just immediately send that over to the CSM, because at that point they're totally hands off. So it's interesting seeing kind of these different examples here. So we have a couple of really fantastic questions about a little bit more of the hierarchy approach, but also with the information that your leadership sees between your CS and your sales organization, and a couple of comments on things like, our leadership they always know exactly when we've lost a deal. They always know when we are not able to kind of expand the customers. So I'm curious on that flip side of, the positive things that your team is doing exceptionally well. How is that information shared company-wide? And does your leadership, have really great insight into, we just renewed these customers at 105% of revenue, or, things like that. So Jennifer McIntosh, tell me about how you guys share that positivity with your org.
Yeah, it's not as formal as it should be, and as we're working towards, I'll say that. But yes, I think that some of the things I've done in the past have been, and I'm implementing here as well, is we're doing a customer of the month, right? And an all hands, right? So we pick a customer that it may or may not be just somebody who's won, but somebody who's got something interesting going on in their account. We'll bring them as a customer of the month and share kind of the activity there. Additionally, we have a lot of Slack channels, which I'm sure everybody else does, and we do a lot of sharing in some of the Slack channels about recent successes, and those are the kind of key ways that we're doing that today.
Love that. Yeah, Jennifer Griffin, how about you?
Yeah, we actually have a Slack channel that we call FTW for the win, and that's where anything that that we want to celebrate for the win for, and every renewal and every new deal and every upsell always get called out in that. We actually have it triggers literally from Salesforce, and so it happens automatically, so it gets in there. But more importantly, I think, is every Monday we have a team meeting that is the entire company, that's led by our CEO, and we have a slide for every single either a new deal we have signed that week, or a renewal, or an expansion. And for the renewals, we will talk about this one renewed and it was a downtick, and let's talk about why. Or this is really exciting, we just expanded and got 2 new brands, or we just added on this product. Tell us a little bit about this CSM. How was this process? Tell us about this AM. And so we kind of get those kind of learnings out there. And so that's how we kind of try to circulate that amongst the rest of the company.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And those are 2 great ideas. I feel like it's so very easy to focus on the things that we didn't win, and those tend to be top of mind. So it's nice when you have the ability to share that to everybody, including your developers and your QA folks and support who might not see all of those quick wins. One of the things that we actually do internally as well, our sales team invites a CS member to every single one of their weekly group sales calls, and we spend the first 5 minutes talking about a customer success story. So even if it's not like we just closed this great upsell or we upgraded a customer to enterprise, it's like, hey, our customer is using a play in a really, really efficient way that we totally did not realize was a use case, just so we're sharing that product knowledge as well as those wins. But I love that idea of the company-wide shout outs and the Slack channels and things like that. We have about 3.5 minutes left. So I would love to get, some of your final thoughts on any of these 3 topics, and I'll drive the slide back so that we can see all of them. So Jen Mac, how do we want to end this today?
How do we want to end this? I think this is going to be a constant sort of level setting of all of the topics that we talked about today, right? So whether or not who owns the responsibility for this, I've been in this side of the house for a long time, and this has always been a conversation. So it depends on the organization. It actually depends on the leadership within the organization, right? If you have a new CEO comes in, or a new very senior executive, they may in fact change the direction. So I think that all of these topics will continue to change, and change is the name of the game and theme today, and will be for the future, in my opinion.
Totally agree with that. Jennifer Griffin, how about you?
Yeah, I think I would leave us with it's teamwork, right? Like it's got to be, no matter how you divide it up, you're going to have to, rely on sales, and sales has to rely on CS. And so for us, it's a constant challenge, because we do have different goals. At the end of the day, we are comped differently. We have different goals, but we're all in it for the good of our company, right? And moving that ball forward. And so figuring out, and I think it has to come from really good alignment at the top with your sales and CS exec, and then all the way down to the individual folks, and making sure they got that really crystal clear alignment. And if you do it well, magic happens and it's easy. And if you don't, it's, everything, you're banging your head against a wall for sure.
Yeah. And, one of the things that a word that I kind of keep writing down over on my notepad is just the concept of visibility. You are working so hand in hand with these other teams, especially in our conversation today with sales. You are working so closely with them that you want them to know exactly what's going on with your customers, the good things and the bad things, but other departments as well. We want marketing to know our success stories and our failures. We want, every other group that we're working with. And a lot of the things that you said, I'm just pointing to that visibility where your team is going to work really efficiently if everybody knows what's going on. So really, really love that. But so we are kind of hitting the end of our time here. I'm going to put our final slide up, but we are going to send out a networking email at the end of this or within, I think, about 20 or 30 minutes. So please send an email to the organizers of the event if you don't want to be on that networking email. We're also going to post a fantastic blog with a recap of some of the questions that you asked that we were not able to answer, because there are a bunch of great questions that we would need another 3 or 4 hours to hit. So thank you everyone so much for joining us. Jennifer Griffin, Jennifer McIntosh, could not thank you enough. I have learned a lot from listening to you guys. So thank you so much. We will have you back.
Awesome.
Thanks, Bree.
Thanks for having us.
Take care.
And now we'll figure out how to end the recording.